Assalamu alaikum. As usual, we have today friend of Bangladesh's program, and we have a very special friend today. Before I introduce him, let's go and see a video clip.
Robert Evans was a member of the European Parliament for the Labour and the Cooperative Parties, representing London from 1994 to 2009. He first visited Bangladesh in the mid-90s. At that time, he was the only MEP who showed interest in Bangladesh. Since then, he worked with the NGO BRAC for the betterment of life for the poor people of Bangladesh. He also worked with another NGO that advocates for the rights of the shipbreaking workers and environmental protection for the beach.
Welcome back. Today, we have a very special friend. His name is Robert Evans, who was a MEP. Robert, so you were an MEP for how long?
I was in the European Parliament 15 years.
15 years?
Yes.
Until?
Until 2009, yes.
2009?
Yes.
Okay. How many times have you visited Bangladesh?
I think I've been to Bangladesh probably 12, 15 times.
12, 15 times?
Yes, over a number of years, over probably about a 20-year period I've been.
So that means like
once a year.
80s?
No, I think I first went about 96, 97. So I've been once a year or so, most years.
In what capacity?
Well, I went first of all as a member of the European Parliament with a particular interest in Bangladesh. And at the time I was probably the only MEP who was taking a serious interest in Bangladesh. And I know since others have. But more recently, I've been with Labour Friends of Bangladesh. The Labour Party. I've been on a few private visits myself, but I've also been for some charity work that I do for both BRAC and a Belgian charity.
Okay, so charity work.
Yes.
And BRAC, you said.
Yes.
So how are you involved with BRAC?
I'm a trustee of BRAC UK, which is obviously the British arm of BRAC, and your viewers will be familiar with the tremendous amount of work that BRAC does. We get involved in different projects in Bangladesh, in Pakistan, in South Sudan, and a number of other countries where BRAC is involved.
So any social activities in the United Kingdom?
I'm involved with, I have a lot of friends in the Bengali community, and so I'm involved in various different celebrations of Bangladeshi culture.
You said about another charity.
Yes.
What is that charity?
This is a charity called NGO Shipbreaking, which is a fairly small charity but based in Brussels, and I became involved with them when I was in the European Parliament. And it's to support the shipbreaking industry, which is very important to Bangladesh in Chittagong.
Scrap metal.
Yes, but it's to try and improve the conditions in the shipyards where sometimes the workers, or invariably, the workers are not well looked after. They may not have the proper footwear, proper gloves. The conditions are not always safe. If they're going to be cutting up ships, they need the proper equipment. But safety, but we're also very concerned about the methods of beaching old ships onto, just bringing them up onto the sand, and try and see if there are alternative or better ways of doing it, which doesn't pollute the beach, doesn't pollute, and Chittagong and Cox's Bazar have got some lovely beaches, but just dragging these ships up onto them is not the best way these days to do things. And it doesn't happen in Europe, and this was the European angle on it. The European Union sets very high standards for shipbreaking and all the toxic chemicals that could be in them. And because Europe sets high standards, they get moved to places like Turkey or China or Bangladesh to be broken up. And that's not the idea of setting high environmental standards that some lesser developed countries.
Yeah. Excellent work.
It provides work, yes, of course, but there's better. There are, and the charity is to try and support the work to improve the conditions.
Very good. So you have been to Chittagong many times?
Yes, I've been to Chittagong to see how it works and to talk with people, talk with the company owners, and talk with the workers themselves. And I'm going to India next month to see similar shipyards that are in the Gujarat there.
Okay. Have you been to Sylhet?
I have, yes. A number of times I've been to Sylhet. On our most recent visit to Sylhet earlier this year, I was very pleased to go and see the new cricket ground that they've built in Sylhet. So I know they have.
Do you like cricket?
Very keen on cricket. Very
Okay.
keen on cricket and sport.
Tell us about Bangladeshi cricket and
Well,
the team of Bangladesh,
Well, I
the
think the
Tigers.
Bangladesh cricket team has done well and is gradually beginning to realise their potential. And for a number of years following Bangladeshi cricket, I felt that they just needed a bit more time to adapt to it. There's a huge population in Bangladesh. It's very popular cricket.
How soon do you think Bangladesh will win the World Cup?
Oh, I don't. England's never won the World Cup, so you know.
Because,
So,
we are just waiting for that day.
yeah, I'm sure. Well, and cricket goes ups and downs. You know, it wasn't that long ago when people were saying, well, we'll never beat West Indies. West Indies are, world beaters. They've got a steady supply of bowlers. And cricket goes up and down. And I'm sure West
Right.
Indies will recover. And I'm sure that Bangladesh will begin to realise it's the full potential of a country, a huge number of people, and a very popular sport.
Thank you. Do you like curry?
Very keen, yes. I'm very keen on curry. I'm a vegetarian.
Okay.
I mean, Niramish Kai.
Niramish Kai.
Yeah. And so I like all the obviously it's good vegetarian food. And
How often do you have curry?
well, probably most weeks.
Okay.
A very good takeaway.
Do you like it spicy or just
Yeah.
average?
Yes, jalfrezi is a good dish I like, and anything with dal in it. Yeah. Yeah.
Like dansak?
Yes, dansak, dal dansak, yeah, dansak, vegetable dansak. Shabji.
Well, as you know, our industry is facing a crisis now. It is declining, an average of 2 a week closing down.
Yes, yeah.
This is because of staff shortages
And the regulations.
and also the government regulations.
Yes.
In one hand, we have the older generation retiring, younger generation not being interested as such. And then you have the government policies, very discouraging policies, unfriendly policies. Yet, this industry is no longer Indian or British or Bangladeshi anymore. It is a British curry industry. We export it everywhere now,
course, yes.
the dishes. So, how do you think we could tackle the problem, these issues?
Well, you're quite right to highlight this, and I think the British curry now has evolved, and it's having been to Bangladesh many times and to Sylhet, where the home of British curry is Sylhet, and there are differences. You know, British curry has evolved to be different from the sort of curry you might get in Sylhet. Obviously, a lot of similarities as well. And I think that we've long been arguing this, that the British government has got to recognise that this is a skilled trade, and I understand the younger generations in this country don't always want to go into their parents' restaurant trade, running the curry house, and I think that the government will have to recognise that this is an essential trade. We don't want it to die out. We need a supply of chefs from Sylhet, really, and they've got to make special...
Because politicians often say that why don't you employ your own unemployed people? The question is, it is not possible.
The
Because
average
unless we get encouragement and incentives from the government, they're not going to just come to work in
I know
this
there
industry.
are Bengali restaurants who are employing British staff or staff of other nationalities, perhaps as waiters or to run the restaurant, but it's the chefs that they really need. And I understand that the British government is anxious about the amount of migration to this country and to looking at restrictions, but the number of chefs that we're talking about to come in from Sylhet is not going to be millions or hundreds of thousands. Perhaps a few thousand. It's a small number to keep a very important industry going, which supports other industries, very important for the culture and all the well-being of many of our high streets as well.
You see, there is an easy solution, I think, when they say about why don't you employ your own unemployed people, youngsters. If the government gave them the incentives and encourages them to join the industry, then I think we can get few people, few of them coming into this industry. The other is, remember the SBS system, whereby young people came to this country from very poor
Yes.
background for 1 year. And eventually not many of them went back, but they have been trained to become chefs and head waiters and so on,
Yes.
and managers. But so they are undocumented people. If the government gave them, the proper status, then we have the chefs and cooks here already, and a large number of them. What do you think about that?
Well, I think that's a very workable suggestion that the government, either the present government or a future government, has got to look at, because we are talking about something that's important. And I recognise that people who work in the curry industry, restaurants, work very long hours and it's a tough job. It's not
Tough job.
It's working 6-7 days a week. It's long hours.
And the
it's
other
demanding.
fact is, when they say that you could bring chefs from the subcontinent, there is a barrier. If you do takeaways, you cannot get a license on that restaurant. Then there is, the amount is what, about 32,000 something salary.
Right.
So a restaurant or a takeaway with 4 or 5 staff, how can they afford to pay a chef 36,000, 34,000
They're not going
pounds?
to. There won't be
It
many
isn't
chefs
going
for
to
Bengali
increase it.
restaurants on 32,000 or 35,000. So, I mean, I think this is where government has got to be realistic and flexible and look. And I know they have had meetings. And I know Keith Vaz and others have done a lot of work over the years to try and make workable regulations, to recognise that the curry industry is important to Britain, it's important to Sylhet, and we've got to move with the 21st century so that we manage to keep it and we attract more people into it.
We'll continue with the discussion. We have to go for a short break. Viewers, we'll be right back. Thank you. Welcome back. Today on this special program, Friends of Bangladeshi, we have a very close friend with us today, Robert Evans. Assuming, and I think it is going to happen, the divorce. Countries like Bangladesh, is it going to benefit in any way? Don't forget, Bangladesh is an ex-colony and a Commonwealth country.
Well, Bangladesh is obviously a good friend of Britain, it's a member of the Commonwealth. It's difficult to see at the moment how Bangladesh will benefit from the arrangements with
Trade.
Britain. I don't see how the trade. I hope to think that the trade between Britain and Bangladesh will obviously be able to continue, but there are a number of agreements between the European Union and Bangladesh. Britain will be outside those agreements now. We will either have to recreate similar, hopefully better arrangements with Bangladesh, but there are going to be changes, and I don't think anybody in the government really knows yet how this is going to happen or what's going to be the situation in the future.
Because if you imagine that, for instance, when I was a young boy, I used to think that the head of the state was the Queen. Okay, the head of the state is of Commonwealth is the Queen.
Yes.
But over a period of time, few decades, it became a new Commonwealth, Australia, Canada and New Zealand. And I remember in 1980s even, we could fly to come to UK to visit without a visa. We could get a port visa. So the Commonwealth relationship was abandoned. And I think Britain lost out trade-wise because new market emerged and they took over the developing countries. I think there is still scope. Do you think that Britain will take advantage of all this situation?
Well, I hope very much that Britain will be able to continue to have the strong ties with the Commonwealth. Bangladesh, obviously, its big trading partner, its big neighbour is India, and other countries in the SAARC region are very important to Bangladesh. Bangladesh is a long way from Britain, but with historically very, very strong links. You spoke about the trading position a few years ago. Unfortunately, there aren't direct flights with British Airways any longer to India, but there are with to Bangladesh, but there are with Biman. There are a great number of flights linking with the Middle East. So the connections between Britain and Bangladesh are strong and will continue to be so. But I don't think we know at the moment quite what the trading position and the economic connections will be in the future, any more than we do with Australia or New Zealand or Pakistan and indeed India. Things are going to change. We're not quite sure how they'll change at the moment. There's a lot of talking, a lot of discussions to take place within the next few months till we get to the actual Brexit divorce.
Okay, let's talk about climate, the climate change. Bangladesh is a victim.
Yes.
What do you think about that?
Well, I was in Bangladesh just after Sidr, which was a hurricane.
Cyclone Sidr.
Yeah, Cyclone Sidr, and that affected Bangladesh very badly, and I saw the impact of that. Bangladesh is a very low-lying country, and when the tsunami hit Sri Lanka and Thailand, very, very serious. A lot of people died, absolute tragedy. Had that tsunami hit Bangladesh, the position would have been even worse because Bangladesh is so very low-lying. And having said that, Bangladesh, I've been there when they've had regular floods, and the people have got great perseverance and do rebuild, resilience, yes, and carry on. But climate change, and we're seeing it with these hurricanes in the Caribbean at the moment.
And in USA,
yes,
which is opposing.
Well, exactly, yes. And I think it's absolutely important that we do everything we can to try and mitigate climate change, to improve things. Because of countries, the low-lying parts, the Sundarbans of Bangladesh will be areas that will be very badly hit if the sea levels rise much more. Bangladesh faces many challenges from flooding and, as you say, great resilience, the people who are used to it. But could be, and I hope not, but round the corner could be floods like we've never seen before, in the same way hurricanes that we've not seen before, and powerful winds. So, we've got to try and make the United States be on board with the rest of the world, and that's going to be a challenge.
I was coming to that.
Yes.
We got to be optimistic. But do you think Trump is going to change his mind?
Well, Trump is not a politician, and that may be why he was elected. He's coming at this as a, inverted commas, businessman who, with a lot of money, managed to become president of the United States, and seems to be reversing many of the good things that happened under his predecessor, President Obama, and indeed under previous presidents, Bush and
Carter.
And the work that Al Gore did on making
climate change,
making people aware of that. And I think it would be a tragedy not just for the United States but for the rest of the world if President Trump were allowed to unravel all of these things. But he's a very strong, very powerful man. The President of the United States is a more than influential position. So we've just got to hope that he can have some advisors around him that will make him see reason on climate change and all the other important issues that are affecting the world at the moment.
Thank you. Let's talk about the Bangladeshi community you know. When you first got to know them, what changes have you noticed till today?
Well, I've noticed a number of changes in the Bengali community in this country. On the political front, there are councillors. The councillors are now being mayors of London boroughs, and I spoke now that we have members of Parliament, British Bengali members of Parliament. So that's
also House of Lords.
And members of the House of Lords. This is a real step forward, and it's a gradual process, but it's an important process, and those people are really showing a important position for the British Bengali community, speaking up for them and showing that what can be achieved by people in this country. But I've also noticed the important contribution that the British Bengali community makes, not just to the restaurant industry, not just to local politics, but to all the other sorts of industries, and the young people who are coming through, who work hard in our schools, who get really good achievements and then go on to universities and graduate and then hold down really key
high
jobs, positions, good quality jobs, and contribute to this country. And also many of them are contributing to family and friends back in Bangladesh, whether it's providing for schools or hospitals or helping the community. And I can see how the British Bengali community in this country has thrived, and also the impact it's had, for an example, back in Sylhet, where there's a lot of money has gone back into Sylhet. And I've seen that develop over many years, which is probably due partly to the industry and the work of the people in Sylhet, but maybe also, and I'm not sure of this, but to the money that comes back from many of the British Bengali community who are doing so well here.
Women, Bangladeshi women, for instance, they are leading the way in education and also in parliament.
Yes.
So we have 3 MPs
Yes.
who are women, and also in the House of Lords, 1 baroness.
Yep.
And then education-wise, they are breaking all the barriers, you know, high achievements because of the hard work by their parents and the guidance. So how do you see the young people into politics and into higher paid jobs?
Well, I think British Bengalis have got some super role models. You know, we have Rupa Huq, Tulip Siddiqui, Rushnara Ali, and Baroness Udin in House of Lords. It is Baroness Udin, yeah.
Yes, that's right.
Good role models, terrific role models of people who are talented, skilled, and who've worked hard and have been successful. I mean, Bangladesh also has a track record of successful women politicians. Yes, and of course there are greatly successful men. But I think this also shows that Bangladesh and women from Bangladesh are showing that within a Muslim culture, women can be to the fore, can keep their faith, work very hard on that, but be recognised and achieve great things.
So you know the community very well. You have been very close with the community. You have been very close with Bangladesh, visited many times. What do you see the future of Bangladesh?
Well, I think Bangladesh future rather mirrors that of the cricket team, which is improving and taking a while. Bangladesh is a large population, 150, 180 million, and worked hard over the years to address infant mortality and the level, the number of children that education. Yeah, education is
health,
all of these issues.
Breaking records.
Exactly. Bangladesh is doing very well on that front. I would like to see, I know Bangladesh pretty well, I've been there, and as you say, and I like Bangladesh, but there's not much of a tourist industry from this country to Bangladesh. A lot of people go to India for tourism. A lot of people go to Nepal
for tourism.
But very few go to Bangladesh, and there's a lot that
could be done.
A lot that is on offer, a lot of things.
Longest sea beach in the world.
In Cox's Bazar, yes. Yeah. Tigers, you know, the Bengali tigers. And
Sundarbans.
I do know people in the Sundarbans, yeah. I do know people who've been to Bangladesh for the visits and who've been to...
Have you been to Jaflong in Sylhet?
I've not. I've been to in Sylhet I've been, but not to Jaflong.
In Sylhet?
Yes, right. No, I've been to the tea gardens and a lot of different places around and about, and there's some wonderful hotels as well. And
so tell us about the changes you have seen in Bangladesh since you started today.
It's a much more developed country, and perhaps it's developed, it's improved, but then it's also got huge traffic problems. And if you look at Dhaka, for example, is a real challenge, is the problem of the traffic, and at some stage or other that will have to be addressed, whether it's a better public transport system, whether it's a metro or something, because at the moment that
metro is coming in Dhaka.
Yes, but it's got to be, the plans for that need to be pretty extensive. That is actually planned, and it's going to be difficult, and I think it's being supported from outside.
So what is your message to our community?
Well,
because we are running out of time now.
Well, I'm very fond of the Bengali community. I've got a lot of friends who are British Bangladeshis. I'm now a member of Surrey County Council, working with the community in Molesey near Hampton Court to try and help. There's a Bengali community. And I think it's to the Bengali community is keep the faith. It's not just keeping the Muslim faith and the other faiths of the different religions in Bangladesh, but to be strong, recognise that Bangladesh has achieved a great deal. British Bangladeshis have achieved a huge amount over the years, making great strides, and that the future can only be brighter still.
Thank you so much.
Dhonnabad.
Viewers, we had a very interesting discussion with our friend today. We have learned a lot. We have shared experience with him and his experience about Bangladesh and the community in the United Kingdom. We'll see you soon. Stay tuned. Khuda Hafiz.